Nigel, hi. Merry
Hello,
Christmas.
Андрей. Thank you, and to you.
Слава Украине.
Героям слава.
Вы хорошо по-русски говорите, but we will make our interview in English. Just you can express complicated and explain complicated geopolitical things about Ukraine, about Russia. Thanks for your support, for your objective analysis of the current situation. I know how pro-Ukrainian you are, and I followed all your articles or your posts on LinkedIn, in social media and social networks. Our today's discussion concerns Russian assets. You know that now we see a lot of discussion concerning the money, how to help Ukraine, how to supply weapons. So actually the reply partly is visible. This is Russian assets. Yes. What are the main problems in this topic?
Yeah, okay. So I think it's first helpful to clarify what we mean by Russian assets. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when people sort of think about this, they think about sort of oligarch yachts and apartments and London and that sort of thing. And that's, those are assets owned by Russians privately, and there are various efforts in various parts of the world to try to use those assets to support Ukraine in some way. But what I'm really focused on is a different issue. This is not private oligarch assets. These are Russian state-owned assets. These are reserves of the Russian central bank that are being kept in Western financial systems. And one of the sanctions measures that the G7 and partners took at the very beginning of this war was to freeze, to immobilize, as it's called, these assets, which means that Russia can no longer access them. They are essentially stuck in our financial systems. The debate ever since has been, what do we do with these assets? And there's been no clear answer that's been given to that. It's important to appreciate we're talking about a lot of money here. And estimates vary because not every country has been clear about how much of these assets there are in their jurisdictions.
How much?
But the estimate's something like $300 billion, which is huge. It's roughly twice Ukraine's current national income. It's vastly greater than the total sums of money that Western governments are providing Ukraine. So in principle, there's an enormous prize here. The obvious thing to do would be to not just allow this stuff to be frozen, but to take it, to make sure that Russia never gets it back again, and to use it to provide help and support to Ukraine that desperately needs it. But no such decision has been made yet.
Because of the political or juridical obstacles?
There are really sort of three objections and concerns that have been raised. The first is legal, and the argument there is that there is no clear path in international law that would make this possible. The second issue is a worry, particularly in the United States, that doing this might in some way destabilize the international system, in particular weaken the role of the dollar. And I know in Brussels there are concerns that this in some unspecified way might weaken the role of the euro. The third concern is that doing this, taking these assets, would somehow set a precedent that would encourage other states in other times and places to take Russian assets. My own view is, and it's a view shared by a lot of other experts now, is that none of these arguments is strong, that there is an international legal path based on the principle of state countermeasure, a well-established principle in international law that would legitimately allow Western countries to respond to this outrageous invasion. Secondly, on the financial concerns, that the fears that this might weaken Western currencies is greatly exaggerated. Never bet against the dollar, incidentally. What other currencies will countries around the world look at in preference to the dollar and the euro? Not the ruble, obviously, not the renminbi. China will never fully liberalize its currency. the dollar and the euro are and will remain the only game in town. And thirdly, on the question of retaliation, well, firstly, Russia is already beginning to seize Western assets. It has taken under Russian administration the Russian subsidiaries of 4 major Western companies already. It's created the framework for doing more. So it's retaliating before we've done anything in the first place. But again, go back to what's at stake here. You have a situation where the West collectively has repeatedly said it's a fundamental interest of the West and of international order to prevent Russia winning in Ukraine. The West has so far been sending some support to Ukraine. It's been sending weapons that have been killing Russian soldiers in the field, and yet the West has not yet found the commitment and the resolve to take the assets of the aggressor and use them to support the victim. I am confident that there is now political momentum building, and that I hope in the coming few months we will see the G7 take a clearer and more principled and more strategic approach to this problem.
Nigel, my last question concerning these assets. In what countries of the world there are the biggest amount of these assets, and who can initiate, the country, this process first?
Not every country has admitted that it has Russian assets or how much that they have. Some countries have, and good for them. As we stand today in December of 2023, Canada has been the first mover on this. They are pushing through amendments to their financial legislation that would create a path to seizing Russian assets. In the United States, in both houses of Congress, there are draft laws that would, again, in the American case, open the path. But the real prize is in the EU and the UK as well, because that's where most of the money is believed to be currently sort of frozen. So I think what we'll see in the best case is Canada and especially the United States setting the precedent. Europe won't move unless America does so first. So what America does has symbolic significance, but what I hope the EU and Britain will then do will have the real financial significance. So you can see an order in which things should progress. And the latest we hear in the financial press is that at last the G7 is actively discussing this. Up to now, they have taken the view, well, we will only give Russia this money back if Russia compensates Ukraine for the damage it has done. We all know Russia will never compensate Ukraine for the horrifying effects of its destruction. It follows that the current G7 position is completely illogical. Now it seems they are realizing that a more rational, more strategic approach is necessary.
So, to put it briefly, and these last developments inspired you, give you some ground for the optimistic scenario. Did I understand correctly?
That's right, that's right. There are active discussions taking place in the G7. There are specific legal initiatives that are underway in North America. And I think every reason to believe that logic and a clear strategic and moral sense will prevail over bureaucratic timidity.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much for your interview, for your
pleasure,
support,
Andrew.
for your objective analysis. And next interview we will make, I hope, in Kyiv or in London, and we'll discuss geopolitical issues. Thank you very much.
I'd love to do that in Kyiv.
Thank you.